Okay.
She is a director and producer and a philanthropist, and most recently, the new chair of the Santa Fe Film Commission. Please welcome to the show, Gay Dillingham. Hi, Gay.
Hey, Jacques, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so happy to be talking to you, and we have a lot to unpack. So I think first let's just get to a little bit about the Film Commission. And I served on it for 3 terms and really made some amazing friends, Deborah Potter and Andrea Medic, and people like that. I think it's just amazing to connect with them. So it was a really positive experience for me, and I'm so glad that you were able to come on as chair. And I think you really have the kind of vision that it takes to lead it in the proper direction. So is there just anything you want to say about your vision for the film commission, or maybe shout out some of your members and tell us who they are?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was sorry I didn't have more of an overlap with you in your tenure there. Yeah, I was honored to be asked to come on the commission, and then Deborah somehow talked me into becoming chair within the first year of sitting on the commission. So, and it wasn't, I'm amazed at the quality of people that are on there, and it's a diverse group, and I'll pull out the list here in a second. But I don't think that I was chosen because of my deep, career in filmmaking, because I've been in and out of filmmaking, but I have been a New Mexican for 35 years and been in business and politics and film, and I kind of understand the way things run, and I care about moving our state forward and our city forward. So I think that's why I was chosen. And we're at an interesting inflection point here. It kind of slowed down a bit during the pandemic because we couldn't meet face to face. And
Well, and don't downplay your involvement in film. I know you're the director of a feature film. That's something that it often takes a lifetime for it to happen for certain people, and it's a major undertaking. That's why there's so few people who have accomplished that. So I think you were a perfect fit in the way that you're a contributor to a lot of causes that move Santa Fe in the proper direction, but also you do know what it takes to take a film from an idea to being us sitting in a movie theater watching it.
yeah, okay. Well, I can give a little bit on that film then, because it was a very much a labor of love, and I started it in 1995 because Tim Leary was dying. So the name of the film was called Dying to Know, Ram Dass and Timothy Leary. And we did I put it down for a lot of years, kept picking it back up because it was so compelling to me relative to this deeper conversation about life and death and psychedelics and drug policy and a number of things that have really come to the fore. And finished it around 2014 and showed it to Lensic, and then was over at CCA for 2 months. So a lot of New Mexicans did get to see it, which I was thrilled. But we went to 88 cities, and I did a very unorthodox distribution because I wouldn't put it on Netflix or go digital because I really wanted to help create conversations. And so in these cities, we were doing first run and held over in most of these cities, and then inviting people in from these different communities, hospice or drug policy, and to host these conversations in the theater, which to me, theater is a sacred space. It's our modern campfire where we actually come together and tell our stories. So where have we been? Where are we going? What do we want to do? And if it had been out digitally, I couldn't have had the kind of momentum behind that in all these cities. And as a little independent film, being held over and going to 88 cities is kind of amazing for a little independent without a big marketing budget. So that was accomplished. And then we did go on Netflix for 2 years. So, and now you can just get it on our website, which is dyingtoknowmovie.com. But that, I guess you know, given it was a journey for me because of the topic and the people and getting to be and know Ram Dass so well. And he passed away a little over a year ago. Actually, no, almost 2 years ago, actually now. And
what was it like knowing Ram Dass?
well, first he was my buddy, good friend and teacher. And it was amazing. I mean, I'm more and more kind of grateful for the time I had with him. I mean, he really helped guide a lot of my inner, you know, spiritual life, not through any of his, because some people called him a Hindu because his guru was a Hindu, but he was very much a universalist in his perspective. And it was great to know him. He was, you know, this might sound strange too, but I really trust my dream life and and I took so long to make this film that I was able to marinate with some of these deeper questions, including in allowing my dreams to kind of let the answers percolate. And some of the things that Robert Redford posed to me, because he really helped me more than just narrating the film. He sat with me in the edit room at the very end when I was stuck and couldn't get some of the fat out, and there were some structural issues. And he was a master and sat in my little tiny video studio and gave me his notes for, I don't know, close to 4 hours. And some of the comments he made to me really took a while to percolate, because when you're telling a story and you're trying to communicate to a broad, you know, to a lot of people, it takes some pretty deep archetypal kind of choices that you've got to make. And so actually having access to a master storyteller like Robert Redford and allowing my dream life to answer some of the questions was kind of an interesting process. I can't say that it's a business model because you can't all take that long to make a movie. And that's why I did you know, I really had a business and ran that. And so my filmmaking was kind of coming in and out during that period of time. But now I'm back and I'm trying to develop a couple of things and really committed to storytelling. So our commission went down. Oh, okay. Where should we pick back up here? So the commission, I think, got some great people on it, including Andrea Medich and Jillian Spitzmiller and Anna Dara. And we still have, let's see, in terms of terms, Chris Jonas, James Lujan.
James Lujan is an amazing guy. And God, it seems like yesterday that we met, but I think it's been like 7 years now. And I think it's really great what he's done for those kids, stepping into that role and saying, you know, we're going to make this the film program. You know, there were so many that were looking for that type of program. And then we see the students like Eric Sanchez coming out of there, and so many more that are, you know, now having budding careers.
Yeah, the Institute of American Indian Art. Yeah. And also Santa Fe Community College now. We've lost the Santa Fe University of Art and Design. Had an interesting talk with Jonathan Wax the other day too, who used to run it when it was still College of Santa Fe. But, you know, I think I'm kind of on a listening tour, really trying to learn and kind of get back into the flow with the filmmaking. Oh, I know what's happening. Sorry, it was my phone.
It's okay. We can cut that. And this is J.P. Wax, the director of Powwow Highway?
Jonathan Wax.
Jonathan Wax.
Yeah. And he was also the film director when it was still Santa Fe, College of Santa Fe. Anyway, you know, we are starting a process of visioning at the commission to say, you know, what can we do? Who are we? What's the future of film for Santa Fe? And, you know, with the rebates having worked all these years and, you know, they've had a lot of challenges, but they are working. And New Mexico really has a very unique, I believe, has a very unique position in storytelling. And I know we're training crews, and this is great. And there's a big strike on the horizon here, but we've got to continue doing it through our universities, developing our crews, supporting our crews. But I don't want to give up, and many don't want to give up the above the line. We have some deep culture here, and we should be telling our own stories, and more independent film, like Andrea Medich and others on the commission really believe. So even at the least, to develop a strong writing program so that we get the stories from our worlds out into the industry, and not just repeat, LA and New York and become something for the studios to, sorry, I'm
It's okay. What I used to say when I was on the commission is, we should not be trying to be a second, staging ground for Hollywood, but we should be trying to be like New York City was in the 70s, where it's these auteur driven pictures and, films being really driven by the director. And that'll be what kind of takes us all the way. And I think there's really now such an opportunity for this to be the place. And, Netflix has seen it with their investment. And then NBC Universal is also committed. And there's looking like there's going to be more to come. So I think this is going to be the hub that a lot of us had always envisioned. And what you're saying about above the line and writers and directors coming out of here, I think that, is kind of the most important thing, since, just being a location for a picture that's about somewhere else is, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's very different than it being, for example, I felt as a young person that I was, here in Santa Fe, but everything on television was going on in LA and New York, and I would like to see the tables turn there, where people on the coast are looking at Santa Fe and pieces of New Mexico and saying, God, I'd love to be there. Look what's going on there. I could be there.
Right. And there's this other interesting little self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of our own identity. Like, is Albuquerque all about Breaking Bad? Is it just about meth labs? It's great that series has taken off, but we have a lot of stories to tell, and beyond Westerns and methamphetamine. So, and aliens, I mean, it's pretty diverse already, but I know how rich this culture is. It's what's kept me here for, decades. And we need to take advantage of that. And I think there's, so this commission, we're setting off on a visioning process to make an actual plan, and really taking everybody's best ideas. So I would invite you and whoever's listening on this program that's interested to come in for our next, November 2nd is our next commission meeting, and it's still virtual. Santa Fe Film and Digital Media Commission, and it's 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. And this will take a while, but, and I know there's been a lot of good thinking prior, including during your tenure. So I'm just trying to collect some of the best ideas and figure out how to make a plan out of it. So I'm kind of just the kind of referee or the coordinator, orchestrator.
Well, and I mean, I think so much of the commission's power is rooted in the city, the architecture, the way it's run, what it is, the importance of being here. And so I think having somebody who has such deep ties to all that at the helm of it makes such a big difference. So I think you're really, I really have all the confidence in the world that you'll take it and turn it into what it needs to be.
Well, I'll help all of us do that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we talked a little bit about Baba Ram Das, but you really had this deep personal friendship with Timothy Leary, and I'd love to talk more about that before we get too far away from it.
Yeah, I didn't know him as long because he passed away in 96. But meeting somebody on their deathbed is a pretty deep dive generally. And I found the first time I met him in the 80s, I was not as attracted to him because he was still the showman. He was trying to, promote at the time LSD, which was Leary software design. And a lot of people don't know that he was really a real forerunner in computer culture. And so I wasn't, I saw kind of the showman. I didn't really see who he was as deeply. But when I met him then on his deathbed, we sent him a certificate for Jacques. And of course, if you know Tim, he's got a great sense of humor. So that really piqued his interest. And he really appreciated our team and me and really invited me in every time I was close, at the house. I remember one day I came over and I see this big Rolls Royce, like not even parked. It was kind of in the middle of the street at the end of this cul-de-sac. It said Hustler on the license plate. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I opened the door and he kind of ushered everybody else out because there was a lot of people living at that house at the time. But he had me come in and there was a camera running without anybody behind it. So I made sure it was working and all of that. And he said, please sit down, sit down. So I listened to this incredible conversation between he and Larry Flynt. Because Larry Flynt had not met him before face to face and had come over to pay his respects. Because they both really suffered from First Amendment rights. Larry got shot, Timothy got put in prison. So yeah, he was an icon. And he was also, what I loved about meeting him at the end was that he was a man and he was a big-hearted person. And he was vulnerable. And that's, you get to know somebody when they're more vulnerable. Yeah, he showed up and I really appreciated that. And so different than Ram Dass and yet not. I mean, they both had a very high intellect and very high heart, emotional intelligence. But you think of Ram Dass more as the heart, at least I did, and also the symbolism I used in the film, and Timothy as the mind. But they both had the opposite as well. And that's why they were such good friends and such good partners in kind of bringing psychedelics, breaking it out of the lab into the culture. And a lot of people blamed Tim for that, a lot of the scientists. And when I looked at it, I thought, well, we can't really blame one person. And on the other side of that coin is that millions of people now have had this experience and the genie's not going to go back in the bottle because of it. And look at all the good things that are now happening with drug addiction and psychedelics and end of life issues and psychedelics. And there's conferences. I mean, I can give you a list of the conferences going on right now, and it's very exciting. It's non-pharmaceutical alternatives to healthy lifestyle and how to deal with anxiety at the end of your life if you've got a terminal illness.
Now, how is Ram Dass, his story, how have you connected with that throughout your life? And did that also play into knowing him personally?
Well, let's see. I read Be Here Now, as many people did. They kind of considered that the hippie Bible back in the 70s. It was produced actually here in New Mexico at the Llama Foundation. And just a little commercial break there, they're carrying on this vision to serve people and feed people. And they're putting together a plan to grow food and really kind of expand what's happening in Taos at the Llama Foundation that he helped start back in the 70s. So I found out also later, because I was married 20 plus years to Andrew Ungerleider, who's still my buddy and love him. But we found out probably 10 years after starting the project that Andrew and Ram Dass are cousins. So, oh, okay, yeah, through marriage in the 60s, a family film here. But Ram Dass, just so easy to love him, and he trusted me. So I asked him to get into things in the film that, he hadn't really talked about before, like being gay. And he, it's known now, but I said, hey, I know I already have your release form, as we do in films, we get release forms. But I said, let's just try to surprise ourselves and get as, real as possible around this. And then if I treat it in a way that you don't feel comfortable with, I'll take it out. And so he trusted me, and we just kind of kept going. And he felt I gave Tim a fair shake. And to tell the truth about someone's life that's so controversial, like Tim Leary, I felt it was important for people to see that truth, but through the lens of love, which is how Ram Dass saw Tim. It's like how to tell a story and tell the truth, but do it with love instead of just judgment, trying to chew people up and spit them out. So that was kind of the way I approached that particular relational film. And it was always their relationship that was the portal to the film. So, is that a practical way to do a film? No, the way I did it. But, and the industry of filmmaking is a business, and it's a beautiful one. And I just want to figure out how to be a crucible here in New Mexico and in Santa Fe in particular for writers and storytellers, and to continue this tradition and the tensions that we're now feeling, with the statues coming down. And there's no perfect right answer on any of that, trying to reckon with history and all the, tragedy that's come down. But maybe through storytelling, it's one of the ways that we can do it. And I really believe in the creativity and the kind of people that end up coming here. And we need to give voice to that.
And, I know you just got married. You're back from your honeymoon. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Camping all over the West. It was great. David Perez, who's also a very creative entrepreneur and musician, piano and guitar. And so with COVID, it was, it's kind of great that we ended up just getting in. Someone loaned us this great camper, and we got to just travel around and follow our nose and fish and walk and eat outside.
Yeah, and David is just not only a fun guy, but about the friendliest and nicest guy you meet. So I'm very happy for you. Mazel tov.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm very lucky. And I got 2 bonus kids in the package too.
Even better. So I think maybe we could shift a little bit. We could talk about some of the other work you've done throughout your time here. And maybe about environmentalism. At the Santa Fe Independent Film Fest, we had the Green Earth program, where it's films about pollution in the earth and, sustainability, as well as films about animals and, usually their habitat and how they're being pushed out of it is what's happening in a lot of these pictures about these different animals. So what is it about, I guess maybe early on in your life, what made you care about clean water, care about the earth, care about pollution, and living in a world that was less polluted than the world now, or with where animals had a chance to exist and run free?
Well, that's a very big question, Jacques. Okay, let's see what level to answer this. I really believe the natural world and its myriad of creative, fabulous creatures, we've co-evolved with them as humans. And to me, it's lonely to go into a forest and not have a predator, or not have a wolf howling, or, the coexistence. And I'm on the board of Wild Earth Guardians. It's an organization I really admire and respect. And we're doing the Greater Gila Project, is one of the things, aside from the lawsuits and everything that these lawyers are really good at, because nobody's there standing up for nature. But But the Greater Gila Project would be trying to create like a Yellowstone of the Southwest, because we have more biodiversity in the Gila, which is southern New Mexico, than Yellowstone has. And most people don't know that. So back to the idea of filmmaking to help people understand and reconnect to the natural world. You know, I believe we're losing our own humanness the more we lose the other animals and the creatures, and it's incredible. Now studies are coming out. I have a girlfriend I went to college with who lives here. She's a registered nurse. Her PhD was on using nature as an RX, as an actual prescription for people. And there's studies now that prove how it does actually feed our mind, body, and soul, health-wise. So yeah, I don't think extracting humans from the natural world is a sustainable survival method. I think we've really, and we're eating through the natural world too quickly without, you know, really understanding all of the ways in which these resources get back to us. Clean our air, clean our water. You know, I worked also at the state for 8 years under Richardson, and I chaired the Environmental Improvement Board, which is in charge of environmental management and consumer protection. And during his tenure and during that time, we passed some of the most comprehensive greenhouse gas reduction regulations in the country. And that was pretty ballsy for a state that relies its budget on extractive industries. And we still can do so much. And I'm so glad our current governor is now really taking this seriously. And we have a lot of great renewable resources. So yeah, let's see. During that time, it was humbling to work inside government. And I'm glad the current EIB is also looking at some really important issues around methane and pollution from oil and gas. And look, I know oil and gas. Part of my family was oil and gas. I'm from Oklahoma. I grew up on a ranch. And, you know, they'll get away with what they can until you regulate, generally. And
sorry, I hope I don't cut off the thought, but you know, I think maybe you can also tell the listeners a bit about all the different environmental films that you've had a part in funding over the years. Maybe just to name a couple, I know Adam Horowitz's documentary.
Yeah, okay, so what's back up in the news, super important, is the WIP site, the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant. So back in '89, Penelope Place and I produced and directed the WIP Trail. Robert Redford narrated that one too, which was super kind of him. And it made a big difference in educating people along all these WIP routes that were bringing radioactive waste into New Mexico to bury it at the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant. Well, all along, unfortunately, you know, much of what we talked about back in the late '80s is happening. I mean, this has always been mixed waste, which means it's combustible. And that's why we had the big accident and they shut down WIP for 4 years. But what's up right now in the news is, or in the, you know, politic, is that they're trying to expand it for higher level waste than it was ever designed for. These are salt caverns. So we as New Mexicans really need to pay attention. The other consolidation happening at Los Alamos National Labs, we're now building all the plutonium pits, which is the trigger to the bomb, the atomic bombs that used to take place at Rocky Flats. So if we care about our air and our water, we better as citizens pay attention to what's in front of us right now. And it's expanding WIP, which is, I would say, just say no, and not that.
Well, and when you find out that the salt casings or salt storage that they keep it in has a life, or lasts for maybe a couple hundred years, but then what they're storing in there has a half-life of 1,000 years or several thousand years.
10,000.
Yeah, you you realize what a bad situation that we're creating.
Right. One of the questions I asked everybody, and this was back in 1989, at the end of the film, was how long does your responsibility go into the future? I mean, if we're creating something that lasts that long and we're incapable of actually isolating it, WIP is the only permanent repository in the world. There was another one opening up, but
in Nevada.
Yeah, but that's not opened because there's continual problems with thinking through how to isolate. I mean, some of the best thinking is keep it above ground, monitored, but we have 16 new, and maybe more by now, but new elements on the periodic table that are atomic related. And we have created as humans things that did not co-evolve with us to for the earth to manage. So we definitely have created a situation that will demand that we get wiser or perish. And so I have my whole life been interested in the big issues, which is climate change, been studying that since the mid-'80s, and nuclear weapons and material, because these are the things that are kind of, you can't step back from. You can't make these mistakes. So, but it does demand us to evolve.
Yeah, and I think it's so hard when you see these huge programs, or I think the thing in the paper now is they want to I'm going to get it wrong, but it's some kind of study that they want to fund or something like that. And I'm just like, well, stop it, man. How many more studies do we need to figure out that there's no end in sight for this? And, it's what the monster movies of yore are metaphors for, is, we're creating this Godzilla or this this giant group of ants that we don't yet know how to stop. So I commend you for your work in it, and I know there's a lot of pushback in the wrong direction here locally. So I think it's nice to have somebody standing up for it.
Well, we've become dependent on the Department of Energy and basically our military industrial complex budget. What's spent in New Mexico is almost the same as our entire state budget. So we are dependent, and there's some things to be super proud of in that, with some of the renewable energy, but we don't need more bombs. We've got thousands. I think anyway, I'll get it wrong, but 3,000, 2,700 active, more in storage. So we don't need more bombs. And we could use a lot of this, mind power and the intellectual capital we do have at our labs, because there's going to be a lot of need for bioremediation. This stuff is out in the environment. We've got to figure out how to deal with the pollution we do have and how to store it. Because the old adage, the solution to pollution is dilution. You heard that one? That was
maybe a little bit before my time.
So, I think there's a lot of science that we do need around atomic science, but not building more bombs. It's making us more and more insecure, not secure.
Can we maybe talk about a little bit about war movies, and maybe start with some nuclear war movies? And I mean, it can be anything you want to bring up, and maybe I'll think of some.
Well, Dr. Strangelove was one of the best.
Oh, good. Perfect movie to start with.
Yeah, because you get a laugh through the truth of a lot of it. And, television is called television, television. So we are creating the vision we're living in. And I think we can start telling some other visions.
Yeah, and God, I just love Dr. Strangelove. You can't fight in here. This is the war room.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those movies that really holds up. I'm trying to think of the title. Okay, I just thought of it. It's that Brendan Fraser, and it's Blast from the Past. And in the film, he's in a bomb shelter as a boy from the 1950s until the modern day when the movie's made. I think it's, the 80s or 90s. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. I can't really remember the movie very well, but the idea that, it was just 50 years ago that people were building these shelters in their yards to hide from this existential threat. And now we look at it as, oh, well, it's just another thing like oil. I don't look at it this way, but I think much of the public is kind of conditioned to think that, yeah, oil and gas are going to kill us, fracking is going to kill us, and nuclear is also going to kill us. But I don't think it's put in the kind of perspective that it was 50, I guess that's more like 60 some years ago, when people are hiding under their desks and building bomb shelters in their yards.
Right. Yeah, we tend to be a species that reacts to emergencies and to tragedy and and if we don't, every time, we have a spill, a Chernobyl, Fukushima, we wake up for a little while, but we don't really change anything. That's what's okay. So this might sound a little strange, but one of the reasons I made my little film about death was because I looked at these big issues in front of us, nukes and climate change, and all the information's out there, but we tend to know how to just kind of ignore it. And it's an incredible characteristic of our species. And I thought, why do we do that? And part of what I came up with after, kind of really meditating on it for a while, is that because we don't put ourselves in the cycle of nature, which is where life and death happen, right? Life and death. And because we deny death, our own, we're able to somehow keep resisting these big existential threats. And when I was a kid, I remember thinking, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And I thought we should have a planetary Book of the Dead because we're going through some similar stages and phases, and yet we don't talk about it. And maybe if we talked about it, it might make it more real so that we could adjust course. So that was my young idealist self. And I'm still kind of like that, but I don't know. I'm not really a downer because I have a lot of hope and just.
No, I'm glad you brought up death. I mean, it's not, it's, the show is, we talk about movies, but I think it is important to kind of look at death and, some of the writing that I love about it, and, that kind of, is it an end or is it part of this cycle? I think that's an interesting philosophical question to have. And I think it does, play so much into so many movies, and often these movies about nuclear war too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely a mystery. And I'm in the church of mystery, probably.
Yeah, the Hebrew word for the afterlife is the same. It comes from the word for a question. And so, yeah, I mean, I think kind of touching on what it could mean, why do we fear it, what's to fear. I think a lot of interesting art comes out of that, including Dying to Know.
Yeah. Well, and one of the reasons psychedelics are now being used for terminal patients, because 1 or 2 sessions can really help them, kind of get out from the stranglehold of the anxiety of being, of death, the end. Because when they get a sense of maybe they're more than, maybe we're more than our body, and there is something bigger, just having that kind of breadth of possibility, I think gives a lot of relief to people. And that's why these studies have been so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, or a lot of people I know, could use their doors of perceptions cleansed.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to promote this too, because Andrew and I, we have a niece, Shoshana Ungerleider. She's a doctor, and she has a project called endwellproject.org. And it's a lot of medical and doctors, but great thinkers. And she's doing a specific symposium this next week on psychedelics and end of life.
Oh, perfect. That's a show, Gay. So if there's anything else you want to plug, or anything else, if you want to wrap it up in any other way, I'm happy to let you have a chance to say whatever you want.
Okay, I'm gonna endwellproject.org. It's on the, hang on, I'm gonna find it. It is on the End in Mind Psychedelics Conference by End Well. And it's on the 14th, next week, Thursday.
Great.
You can sign up on the internet. That's free. You can give if you want. Some great speakers. Dr. Shoshana Ungerleider, so proud of her. She also got her degree in integrative medicine with Andrew Weil as a doctor. So she's, I just love her, trust her. What else can we, Fantastic Fungi, another great movie that's doing a lot of education.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, come back on to see what else is out there.
Okay, well, God, that flew by, and we'll have to talk much more. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I want to thank you for all these years that you have been leading and making Santa Fe Independent Film Festival happen. I mean, it's an amazing festival. You've done more to kind of promote Santa Fe as a real arts film center. And I'm just so grateful to you and your team. And I look forward to, well, we just had the festival, but I usually had missed it in the past because I had this board meeting I always had to go to, but I just hands down, way to go. And
yeah, and I hope when this airs, you had a really, really good festival. And, thanks so much, Gay. I'm really excited. I'd love to have you back on. I mean, that just seemed to fly by, and I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Well, and come back and give us your thoughts on the commission. Let's keep that dialogue going, because it's a community conversation about
I'm in town on the 2nd, so I'll be sure to sign in and see you guys. Thanks so much for joining us. This was Gay Dillingham, director, producer, and chair of the Santa Fe Film Commission.